Matthew 14:13-21, the bread of the kingdom. Matthew records that when Jesus heard of John the Baptist's death, he withdrew by boat to a deserted place by himself. Multitudes followed him on foot from the cities. When he came ashore and saw the great crowd, he was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. The scene unfolds in a desolate place, far from the provisions of the towns, where the needs of the people were evident and immediate. As evening approached, the disciples urged that the crowd be sent away so that they might buy food in the surrounding villages. Their concern was practical. The wilderness offered no visible resources, and thousands of people stood in need. But Jesus responded with words that shifted the entire frame of reference. They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. The disciples answered with the limits of their own perception. We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. In their hands, the provision appeared insignificant. Measured against the multitude, it seemed impossible. Yet the narrative intentionally highlights the insufficiency of human supply in contrast with the sufficiency that comes through the Messiah. Jesus then commanded the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed the food, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn distributed them to the people. What began as a small and inadequate supply became more than enough. Everyone ate and was satisfied, and 12 baskets full of fragments remained after the meal. Matthew notes that about 5,000 men were fed, besides women and children. The magnitude of the event emphasizes that the miracle was not merely about physical provision, but about revealing the nature of the kingdom that was arriving through the Messiah. The setting itself echoes the history of Israel. The people were gathered in a wilderness place, just as their ancestors had been during the days of Moses. In that earlier generation, God provided manna from heaven to sustain the nation. Here, in the presence of Jesus, a greater reality is revealed. The one standing among them is not merely another prophet within Israel's story, but the one through whom the fulfillment of that story was unfolding. By blessing and breaking the bread, Jesus demonstrates that the provision of God's kingdom does not arise from human ability, but from divine sufficiency. The disciples possessed little, yet in the hands of the Messiah, it became abundance. The miracle reveals a principle embedded throughout the unfolding of redemption. What is insufficient in human hands becomes overflowing when it proceeds from the work of the Son. The 12 baskets of leftovers carry symbolic weight. The number recalls the 12 tribes of Israel, representing the whole covenant people. The abundance signifies that the provision of the kingdom would be more than adequate for the entirety of God's people. Nothing would be lacking in what the Messiah would accomplish. This event also anticipates a greater provision still to come. The bread distributed among the crowd foreshadows the life that would be given through the Messiah himself. Just as the multitude depended entirely upon what he provided that day, so the life of the age to come would be grounded entirely in what he would accomplish through his death and resurrection. Within this moment in Galilee, the people witnessed a sign that the long-awaited fulfillment of Israel's promises had arrived. The wilderness, once a place of scarcity, became a place of abundance. The crowd, once hungry, departed satisfied. What began with 5 loaves and 2 fish concluded with overflowing baskets. Thus, Matthew presents Jesus not only as a miracle worker, but as the one through whom the covenant story reaches its fulfillment. In him, the provision of God's kingdom appears in unmistakable clarity. Abundance where there was once lack, satisfaction where there was once hunger, and fullness where there was once insufficiency.